Hello guys, my name is Wim. In this video I want to quickly go through a Q&A with you guys. So I've been having a couple of questions regarding this product. So questions such as, for instance, how do you create a new level? Then how do you handle the level sequences that are in there? How can you customize the level sequences? Is it possible to make the game instead of 4-player multiplayer, 8-player multiplayer? How would you go about adding more items? Things like that. Let's actually go into Unreal and then I will take you guys through this, and hopefully this will answer most of the questions I've been having lately. Alright, see you guys in Unreal.
Okay, so you bought BomberGuys and you were wondering how to create a new level. Well, first thing we're going to do is here in the content browser, we're going to open the BomberGuys folder. Then we are going to open the maps folder, and inside of the maps folder you see the structure for all of the levels. So the boot level is the one where you start up, then you get the create profile level. From there players go into the main menu level, and then from the main menu level they can either go into the level editor or in the lobby, and from the lobby they can then host a classic match or a custom match. So what is the difference between classic and custom? Well, since we have a level editor in this game, so people can actually create their own levels. So in here we are in a level editor level, for instance, we can hit play. And as you see here, we can actually create levels on the fly and we can then save them. So there's two different ways that players can play. They can either play their own custom levels. That's what these maps are for. So what are these maps? Well, basically, if you open them up, they're levels that contain these actors, custom level actor spawners. They are found here in the blueprints folder, under core, under gameplay, under actors, under spawners, and here you have the custom level actor spawners. So upon actually hosting and loading into your own custom level in multiplayer, these custom level actor spawners will actually pull all the data of your own created level, and then these will generate the blocks based on how you created your own level. So that's what these custom levels are for. Then if we close down this folder again, close the blueprint folder, and then next to these custom levels, so let's look here, next to these custom levels, we also then have these gameplay classic levels. So these are levels that are pre-made in the editor and that are not edited inside of the game. And this is what players can also play. So first let's have a look at how we can create another one of these pre-made levels. So the first thing that I recommend doing is actually selecting a level that you kind of want to make that is in one of these teams and then duplicating that one. So for instance here, the forest level, we can go ahead and duplicate it, and then we can give it our own name. So we can call it, for instance, forest level _2, and then create that level. Then we can actually open that level up. Here we go. So now we have forest level 2. Then inside of forest level 2, the first thing that we see is that we have these level sequences here. So when the players play the game, they actually see a spectating camera. So if I am to go into the standard forest level and hit play, you see this sequence here playing. And there's also a sequence for when you get killed that you see the cameras from the sides. You can see that in the trailer of BomberGuys. So the first thing that we have to do is basically duplicate these level sequences. So we can find them over here inside of assets. If we open this folder up, then we see sequences, and then we see the classic level sequence, and that's what we are currently working on. Then what we can actually do is, the first thing that I recommend is deleting these level sequences here. And then we can go into the classic level sequence here. Do understand all of these level sequences have the same cameras and the same movement. So you can choose any of these and just duplicate it. So for this example, let me duplicate the forest sequence 1 here and call it sequence 1 forest _2, because this is my level 2. And then we also want to get sequence 2 for the forest. So let's get that one, sequence 2 forest, duplicate, and then we can say sequence forest, sequence 2, forest 2, there we go. Okay, then we have to drag the level sequences into the level. So select both of them, drag them into the level. And then we have to open them up, and then you see that there's a couple of cameras missing in the sequence. So what I always like to do is dock my sequence here. So you see that this camera is red. So the sequences have references to cameras that are inside of the level. And you can find these cameras over here. If we close this actor folder and all the other folders, you see that the level contains these types of folders. So here we actually see that camera. So this sequence needs camera actor. So the way to replace the reference to this camera actor is that we can actually right click it here, assign actor, And then we can actually find the camera actor. So you can then type in the name that you see here, or if you already find it like me over here, then you can assign it like this. All right. And then what we also have to do is that we have the camera cuts here. So once the camera is assigned, you have to right click on the camera cut and then also assign your camera here. There you go. Now this camera is assigned to here, and then you can preview it and you can see that the sequence is properly working again. Now this sequence is functional again. Now we have to select the new sequence, so that's sequence 2. As you see, this is now black because there's a fade track in here, so if we put it over here, it becomes white. And here we simply have to do the same. So we have to select these cameras, right click, assign actor, and then we actually have to assign actor 1, close it, assign actor 2, close it, and so on. And then just like we did with the other sequence, here we also have the camera cuts. So now we also have to assign these camera cuts to the corresponding cameras. So if you just right click it here, cine camera 1, cine camera 2, cine camera 3, and so on. All right, then you can preview the sequence by clicking on this camera here. Then if we go through it, we can see that this is the correct sequence. All right, now that the sequences are fixed, you can then make changes to the sequences if you wish to do so. So let's say that this sequence camera 1 here, this one in the camera cut, you want to change it. You can then select your camera here so that you now view camera 1 sequence. You could then open it up, go into transform, and here you could change the location, the rotation. So if you just are anywhere in the scene here, you can actually just click on the plus button. So you can actually also move the camera, so it can just go like this. Hold right click, just move with AWS. And then here, for instance, I can set the new transform. So just click on this plus here. Now it has been added, as you see. So now, as you see, I modified this camera sequence here. So you can modify this to however you like. All right, then the last thing for the sequences that we have to do is that we have to find them here in the level. So if you close the cinematics folder, then what I recommend is getting these two sequences newly created into the cinematics folder. Then what we have to do is that we have to select each one of them. And then we have to give them a tag, because in the code, we actually reference these level sequences so that the code can find the level sequences and can then play them. So if we have a quick look at that, we go over into the blueprints folder, into core, into gameplay, into the player controller. And then if we make this bigger, then what we see here is that, so on event possessed, that is when you become the player, we unview the sequence. And when we actually start, we can see that we actually start to view the sequence. So this is an event that gets called. And inside of this custom function here, we see that there is a sequence coming in here. This is the tag that we are looking for, this tag. So we are trying to find the level sequence of this tag. And this is tag 1, for instance. And if this is equal, then that's the sequence that we want to play. So in here, we can basically fill in the level sequence that we want to call. So this event OC view sequence, here we can then put in 1, and then it will view sequence 1. And here we can put in 2 to view sequence 2. And this is what we actually use in the code. So if you run down the game mode code, then you actually see that this is what we use in order to view the sequence camera. All right. So in order to assign those tags, you have to select your level sequence in the level. Then in the details panel, you scroll all the way down until you see this actors tab. You open this one up. And all the way here in the bottom, you have tags here. So if you click on the plus here, you can then assign sequence 1 to 1 and sequence 2 to 2. Then you can actually hit save all. And if we then go ahead and hit play, you will see that your sequence properly works. Let's also test the other sequence real quick. Okay, so when the player spawns, I unpossess that.
Go.
I unpossess that sequence. And then we can actually go ahead and just kill ourselves real quick. And then we will view sequence 2. So when the player dies, sequence 2 will play. And as you see, this is the modified sequence 2. Okay, so that answers the questions on how we can actually assign the sequences in the new levels, and then we can just change the levels. So what are levels consisting out of? Well, these gameplay classic levels are actually just consisted out of these meshes. So these are just meshes. You can find them over here in assets, 3D assets, meshes, and then over here you have blocks. So here you have all of these blocks. So if you wish to change these blocks, what I recommend is setting your grid to 100. That's 1 meter. These little squares here are 1 meter by 1 meter. So if you want to modify your newly created level, you can simply get any of the blocks and put them in here. Do keep in mind that we have intended the game that we have destructibles and indestructibles. So all of these level actor spawners here, they actually create the destructibles, and these meshes here are supposed to be the indestructibles. So find yourself some indestructibles and just place them wherever you like. So like this, and if you have your thing to 100, it will neatly snap in place here. And then you can modify the level to whatever you like. So I can change these blocks and switch them out. There you go. Oh. So as you see, you can then actually start to create whatever type of level you think looks fun. And of course, you can also always change the scenery. So if you want some trees to be gone, or if you want to just place some entirely different props, then that's all possible, of course. So we can do that too. We can delete these trees, for instance. And if we would want a trampoline to be here, we can actually do that. So we can go here into the meshes. So under assets, 3D assets, we can simply go into props, and then we can place whatever we like in this scene. So let's say we want a trampoline here in the forest. We can simply put a trampoline here. Now I would recommend turning off your snapping of 100. So yeah, just place the trampoline wherever you like. And let's say that we want a house in this scene. We can also just get the trees away here. Get these bushes out of the way. And then we can simply drag in one of these little houses and place them where we like. Something like this, for instance. Just get your trees away. Just like that. Alright, so that's how you can actually modify these levels. And then the last thing to know about these classic gameplay levels are these little bombs here. So what are they? Well, let me delete a couple of them. These actually allow you to spawn your own bombs on the grid, and they also randomly spawn the destructible blocks. So the way to get them is that you go over to blueprints, then you could go into gameplay, actors, spawners, and then here you will see the actor spawner. So this one you can just drag in. What I recommend for this is that you put your grid snapping back to 100 again. So you can drag these bombs in, just like this. And then there's a couple of settings on these bombs. So if you look in the details panel here, scroll all the way up, then you can actually here change what these blocks spawn. So if it does spawn a destructible, then you can actually change here what type of destructible it should spawn. So you can select that it needs to spawn metal pipes. This one you want to spawn neon blocks. And this one, for instance, you wanted to spawn a tree orange. Make sure that your entire level is filled with these bomb spawners, because otherwise there will be spots in your level where you cannot spawn a bomb. And then you might wonder, what are these here in the corner? Well, since a player spawns in the corner and we don't want the player to be locked in by these types of blocks like this. So let's say that this would generate an actual destructible block, then we want to get rid of these destructible blocks. So the way to do that is that if we place some actor spawners in here on these locations, then we have installed this little check here, must be bomb spawner, and if you set that to true, you see that the billboard image changes. And what this means in the code is that you can still spawn a bomb there, but the level cannot spawn a destructible there. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to change a couple more of these so that we see that we have some great variation in this level, and then you guys have a good idea of how this custom level works. Alright. Yeah, then if we go ahead and hit play, then we will see that there will be some blocks spawned in, and some of these blocks will be different than the trees. As you see, we now have, for instance, the brick in here, the metal block, and yeah, all types of different destructibles.
Ready? Go!
So over here, since this level actor spawner here, we changed it to this moving box. You see that this is actually a moving box. So I can now go ahead and destroy it. There we go. Alright, so that is how you can actually customize these gameplay classic levels. Then let's go and look into how we can change the level editor levels. So let's have a look at the construction level for this one. So this is the actual level editor. This is not the level that your level editor custom level gets hosted in. This is the actual level editor where you create the level. So what do these consist out of? Well, first of all, we have some more scenery here. Let's actually go ahead and turn off the grid because it's kind of annoying. There we go. So first of all, yeah, we have some scenery here. So these are just all assets here that we have made for you guys that you can change. And then yet again, we have these actor spawners, but in this case, we have the custom level actor spawners here. So we go into blueprints, then go into spawners. Then instead of the actor spawners, here we have the custom level actor spawners. So if we get these away, then you see that you can simply just drag these in. Yet again, I recommend having your grid snapping set to 100, which means 1 meter by 1 meter. And yeah, so these will allow you to basically click somewhere. So what you will see is if I get these away and then play this level, then select my blocks, then I cannot spawn here. So I cannot spawn in this area, but I can spawn around it. So that's what will happen if you click in these empty spots. So if you do want to be able to spawn actual level actors here, then I recommend placing these everywhere in the level editor. And then the level editors have different sceneries. So if you go into maps, level editor, then you can see that you can edit levels in the garden level, in the neon level, in the forest level. In every level you can edit levels. And then here in the corners, since this is the level editor, players don't actually get spawn here. So here in the corners, we simply have this mesh of this bomb spawner. So that's all you have to know about custom levels and how you can customize them. So you guys can just switch out the border. Let's say you want a different border here. Then simply go into assets, 3D assets, meshes, borders, and then you can simply drag in a different border. So drag in, for instance, the speedy border. And there you go. Now you have the speedy border in this construction level. All right. And then the last thing about level customization are, of course, then the gameplay custom levels. So let's say you want more gameplay custom levels because you also have more of these level editor levels. Well, then we actually have to do the same as for the gameplay classic level. So let's go into this construction map. What you would have to do is also simply duplicate it, create the level sequences again, and then also place your level actor spawners. But just keep in mind that custom levels don't use the actor spawner BP, but use the custom level actor spawner BP. And furthermore, these work the same, but instead of spawning something that you have actually assigned in the level, it will spawn whatever you've created in the level editor. And then in the corners of your custom levels, we actually just have bomb spawners here, because that's what we need here. So as we saw in the level editor, if we take one more look at that, then we actually see that we just have these meshes here. And then if we go into the custom gameplay level, then we see that we actually just have to put these actor spawners here. And that we need to set them in the corners here to must be a bomb spawner, so that we can guarantee that here we do not have any destructible spawned. All right, and then you can modify these custom levels to your likings as well, the same way that we customized the classic gameplay levels. Furthermore, we can have a look at the lobby level. So if you wish to customize the lobby level, well, this is simply a matter of level creation. So here I also recommend turning off the grid. It's a bit easier to edit. So yeah, you can just actually go into the assets and select any of the 3D assets that you would want to place here. So go into the props folder. And if you want to add more bushes, for instance, you can simply drag these in and place them. Recommend setting your grid to 10. So yeah, these are the lobby is very simple, and it's just a matter of walking around here. We got 2 blueprints in here, the actual functional trampoline and the functional soccer goal. So we can actually just walk around here in the lobby.
Select a character.
And we can jump on the trampoline, or we can attempt to score the soccer ball. There we go. Now response. So yeah, customize the lobby to your likings. Let's say that you want to change the actual landscape here, then go into modes, into landscape. Then you have a couple of options here, so you can sculpt the landscape. So if you make your brush a bit smaller, and if you set your strength to something like 0.3. Then you can actually go ahead and create more of these mountains here if you want to do so. So you can make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, and just go ahead and create some more mountains, for instance. And if you wish to paint the lobby instead of sculpting the landscape, then you can go over here into paint. And then here we have these landscape layers. So for instance, you want to set some dirt here. I recommend setting your radius to something like 300. And then you can simply just draw some dirt. You can draw some dirt over here. And yeah, just change your lobby to whatever you like. All right, so let's look at the next question. So is it possible to change the game from 4 players to 8 players? Well, yes, it is. So let's start at the very beginning. So first of all, we have to go to the main menu because that's where it all starts. And if we hit play here, then we can actually see that if we hit the play menu, then we have a max players here set to 4. So it will not allow us to click past 4. So the first thing you're going to have to change if you want to have your game work with 8 players is actually change this from 4 up to like 8 or something like that. So in order to change that UI, we go into widgets here. We then go into main menu and then into the play menu. We make the play menu a bit bigger. Then here we see this value. If we go into the graph, and then we get here, then here you see that we can actually increase or decrease the amount of max players in the host game menu. So if we open up this macro, then over here we see that the max options is set to 4. So let's change that to 8, for instance. And here the max options, yet again, we have to change it to 8, for instance. That's simply all you have to do in order to host a game for 8 players. Now we also have to customize the level so that the level allows for more players. And there's a couple things that we have to take into account here. So first of all, if we look at the lobby, if we hit play here, we see over here that we have these panels. So we can have a host, and then here will appear multiple players. So if I host, for instance, a game with 3 players as a listen server, hit the pie window,
select a character.
Then as you see, this is where it populates the panels. And what you see here is the first challenge, and that is that we intended this space here on the left to contain 4 players. So there can maximum fit like 4 players here. I can actually show you that. Let's just simply set it to 4.
Select
there you go.
A character.
So as you see, if you spawn here with 4 players in the lobby, then you can see that this space here on the left only allows for 4 players currently. So that's the first challenge. If you want to change it to 8 players, then you have to modify this part of the UI. So to find that part of the UI, go into the widget folder, into lobby, then open the lobby HUD here. And then over here we have this panel, this vertical panel on the left here. And if we open that one up, then here we see the connected player list. And inside of this connected player list is where we would spawn these items. So currently, if you have 8 players connect, it will simply go all the way beyond the chat here. So in order to make this fit, you would simply need to change this widget over here. And the widget is found here, connected player widget. What I would recommend is that you scale everything down a bunch so that you can make it work for 8 players, for instance. Or what you could also do is simply create a second row here and then have 4 other players appear in that row. So yeah, this would be the first UI challenge that you would then have to modify in order to make the game work with 8 players. And then the second thing that we have to take into account in the gameplay levels, so whether it's a gameplay classic level or a gameplay custom or the level editor, for each of these levels, we would have to take into account that we currently have 4 spawn locations. So these are the player spawn locations and the players spawn in these corners. So how would you make this work with 8 players? Then we would also simply set these to be bomb spawners as well. So bomb spawners means you can spawn a bomb, which means you can also spawn a player safely there because it will not spawn destructibles. So yeah, now we have this spot over here. I would also recommend then dragging out another player start, dragging that above there as well. And then you would have to do the same for other locations too. So these ones over here, also change them so that they must be a bomb spawner. Also put the player start over there. Drag out the player start. And then these ones here in the bottom I would also change. So also change them to be spawners. These ones in the top, also change them to be spawners. And then the one in the bottom here, we have to do another player start here. And then the one in the top here, we would also need to have another player start. There we go. So as you see, we now have 8 locations where we can spawn a player. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we also have 8 of these spawn points. So now we go and spawn 8 players and click play. Then we see the countdown starting. We got all of our 8 windows over here. So it's a bit of a mess, guys, because it's hard to test with 8 players. But as you see, we now have 8 players. And this is also where we start to see the next challenge.
Go.
So yeah, now we can actually just play the game here with 8 players and everything works 100% fine. So as you see here, one of these players died just now. So yeah, this also would work 100% fine. But the next challenge that we see here is that, well, here on the top right, where we see the actual scoreboard, we suddenly don't see 4 people in the scoreboard, but we see 8 people in the scoreboard. So another UI challenge, keep that one in mind. And if we finish the game here, we actually get that intermission screen. And the intermission screen, just like that lobby screen, is designed to only contain 4 players right now. So if we look in the widgets here, go into gameplay, then actually go into this intermission screen. Then what we can see from this UI part here as well is that we have intended this to be designed for 4 players as well. So if you wanted to have your game with 8 players, you would have to change this UI layout so that it can contain more players here. Then next to the intermission screen, we also have this winner screen here. And the winner screen, yet again, this one gets actually populated with this winner screen items. So that are these, and these are pretty big. So if we actually show you here, we can go over to user created and get a winner screen item in here. So this one. So we would drop it in the player list here. And as you see, if I start to duplicate these, we got 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them. So yet again, this is intended to be designed for 4 players. And if I were to change this to 5 players, 6 players, then you already start to see that it simply just does not fit the screen. And that is just how we chose to design the game. So if you want to design the game with 8 players, then this is a challenge that you would have to overcome as well. So the way to fix that is that I would go about going into this winner screen here and changing this widget here so that it would be smaller, for instance, and that it would then be able to fit 8 players. So you would also have to actually change and perhaps scale some of this interface stuff here in a program like Illustrator. But yeah, that is the steps that you would have to take in order to change the game to fit 8 players. Alright, then I've also had some questions about how you can add more items in the game. So if we want to look at how items are used, then we can actually go into blueprints here. We can go into core, gameplay, actors, and then here we have items. So if you want to create more of them with different functionality, then what you have to do is that you can then duplicate these. So you can get the speed up, for instance. You could duplicate it and call it something like new ability. And understand that we also always need a speed down. So I'll call this one new ability down. So we have new ability down, and then we have new ability up. And then you can actually open up these abilities, and this is where you would have to do some custom coding in order to change it. So whatever you want your new ability to be, this is the spot to program the new ability. You would also want to change your mesh. So if you go into the viewport, you can select the mesh, and then you can have one of the new abilities in here. So if you type in item, we actually got, for instance, the shield in here. So this is one that is not used in the game, but we did include it in the game. So if you want to program this ability to have some custom functionality, then the mesh is already there for you. You can simply program the ability here. And then these items, they could actually spawn by the destructible blocks. So here we have destructible blocks. And if you open up that blueprint, then what we see in here is that when this destructible block receives damage, we actually spawn a bomb spawner on the destructible blocks that we can then, once the destructible block is removed, we can then spawn bombs there. And then over here, we see that we have a 50% chance that an item gets dropped. So currently we have 3 items. We got a bomb item, blast item, and speed item. It's the items that we see in here. So we have bomb, we got blast, and we have the speed ones. And if you were to want to have your extra items in here, you would then add 2. You would also change your maximum here to be 7, and then you would have to create a new function. So what you can do is that here you can duplicate this spawning function. You can then call it new item. You can call it new item. If you then go into the event graph here, you can actually get your new item, put 2 cables in there so that you even out the chances that this one gets spawned. Get the spawn transform in here, reattach this one to destroy, and then open up your function for your new item. And then in here, in the new item, you would then select the class for your new item. So that one is this new ability here. Let's change the new ability down. Mesh really quickly as well. So if we type in item, you can have the blue one here for down, for instance. So as you see here, we now have our new ability. We can then select the up one, go back into this spawn new item script, select the up here in the up, select the down one, put it in the down, and there you go. So now your new items can get spawned by the destructible blocks. And that's how you create new items in the game.
Hello guys, okay, so I hope that this Q&A is clear for you guys. If there are still any questions, you guys can always reach out to me on the Discord server. Make sure to join that. There's around 250 members in there. We all help each other out. And you can always leave a comment down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That helps out the channel. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers. And guys, don't forget, if you're looking for a chat solution, a multiplayer replicated chat solution that is the solution for your project, then check out the chat product that we made, because this contains a lot of cool features and it might be very interesting for you. Alright guys, see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.